Aaron Lewis from Liberty Brett Norfleet here with Tommy Lepore here from Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for another edition of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball, game7baseball.com. Fall ball, full swing. Tickle in my throat. There it is. It's the fall. I don't know what happened there. You do what you do. Great tournaments out there for the fall season. Go ahead and get yourself signed up if you want to get in and take advantage of this opportunity. The weather's great right now, and as I'm being joined today by Kevin Moulder, the guru from Prep Baseball Report, Director of Scouting here in Missouri. It was a beautiful day on Sunday, was it not?
It turned out to be a gorgeous day, probably the best day we've had in a good while. Nice and cool, and it was a fall day for classic Missouri fall day. So it was a great day, sunny, and had some overnight rains, which presented some challenges. Had to push our event back a little bit, but at the end of it all, we ended up having a great day for baseball.
It just made it a little longer day, didn't it?
For me, but yeah, we just pushed the events and we started a little bit later, but that's all right. It was a fun day overall.
It really was. There was a lot of good talent out there. So Kevin and I, we're going to recap that. Also, stay tuned. We got Coach Tim Funkhouser from Edwardsville High School on the show here, following up our segment with this. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
Wow,
Kevin,
big name,
right? He's fun to talk to. He really is.
He's great.
He's an interesting guy, and the success is there, and not only that, just the wealth of knowledge that these guys have, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Coach Funkhouser, and I know you have Coach Perkins on all the time. You're getting the A-list baseball celebrities here in Missouri and in St. Louis area. That's impressive.
I don't know how I did that. I'm just the Joe Schmo guy, man. But they're very, you know what? They're very pleasant, and I appreciate those guys taking the time, because they do. They're taking time out of their busy schedule to come on and talk baseball. That's what Youth Baseball Midwest is about, trying to provide information, knowledge, and those things. And that's why the same with Mr. Moulder right here, guys. You should pay attention. He's the director of scouting here, and that's why I like talking with you, because it presents that information to kids. What are you doing to help your recruiting process, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And that's what it's about. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. There was some guys that really I thought stood out this weekend. Some uncommitted guys. And the first at the top, I want to talk a little pitching, because there was 4 names that really stuck out to me. And I want to go to one that's maybe people really don't know, because it was a homeschool player. He plays for the St. Louis Patriots around here. We talked about them. I think was it last year they won the World Series, Kevin?
So two seasons ago. So last season they advanced to the World Series, had a good run. 2 seasons ago they won the homeschool World Series. So St. Louis Patriots, one of the best homeschool teams in the country, and I've been out to see them a couple games, a number of times, and they play good baseball. It's a good team, and they've moved guys on to college ball. So St. Louis Patriots, I usually put them in my small school rankings, and they have been in the top 10 each of the last 2 years. So they play really good baseball, and they'll play a strong schedule. So,
to your point, young man that played youth baseball on one of my teams way back in the day with Justin. His name is C.J. Mund. The Mund family, great folks. He was a homeschool kid, went on to play college baseball, played for the St. Louis Patriots, had a good arm. I think I'm trying to think if it was D3 or D2, can't remember. But CJ's a great kid, had a great career, played well with the St. Louis Patriots. They had a good team. So it's all out there. And this young man right here, Ajani Hankey, had a good showing on the mound. His fastball velocity max was 86.9, 87 miles an hour. And he really, not just on the pitching mound, but he had a good overall showing, didn't he, Kevin?
Yeah, Johnny had a good showing at the MoFall games. I've seen him a couple times in the past week or two. Strong, athletic kid. Is a two-way player. He has really good upside on the mound in particular. He's got a really strong arm, big fastball. I've seen him up to 90. In these events, it's a full showcase and then a game. So, and Ajani's a two-way player, which is great. Sometimes that can work against you a little bit in an event like this because you're throwing from the outfield or the infield or the catching position if you're a two-way guy before the game, and then you go out and pitch in the game. So, there's really no other way to do it, and a lot of guys do really well. But Ajani still had a great day overall. I would venture to say, had he not done the workout beforehand, he might have been, 89 or 90. But yeah, had a strong showing once again, and that's a kid from the St. Louis Patriots that will move on to play college baseball, and he's getting some exposure now, and one to keep an eye on certainly.
It was interesting you say that because I remember watching him. We saw the outfield guys. We were there. We were setting up the cameras and whatnot, and he was doing his outfield throws from there. He was accurate too. That was one of the things I remember. And I see that you had the net set up there. The catchers hadn't come over yet, so it was just a net, and you really kind of get a pretty good idea. He was hitting that net the way it was set up right there. Good, accurate, strong throws. I love to see that. I know it's great, and a lot of the guys are just pumping, just trying to show off the velocity from the outfield. I like to look at that. If you can do that and then you're accurate on top of it, that's just sets you at another place.
Yeah, absolutely. Just thinking back to the Cardinals and going back to the multi-gold glover, Jim Edmonds, he didn't have the strongest throwing arm in the world. Now, he had a strong throwing arm, but he was known for his accuracy, and he had a ton of assists, but didn't have the Rick Ankiel type, right, otherworldly arm, but was super accurate. And that is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how hard you throw if you can't throw it to where you need it to go. And so Ajani did a good job with that during the defensive portion of the showcase.
And I think that's true. You watch a player like Mookie Betts today. Mookie is extremely accurate. He's got the strong arm, but he's extremely accurate. And I think that goes to the higher amount of outfield assists. Is if you're working to build that strength, think about it within the context of being accurate. Don't just chuck it up there. Think about where it's going.
Absolutely.
Just a little helpful hint there. Top of this list, Kai Bennett, Liberty product. We've talked about him in the past. Got to talk to him there. He really showed very well on the mound this weekend. I thought the best thing about it, though, Kevin, is I was watching. He gets the first batter and sticks a fastball in his back, and the second batter did the same. And I was like, oh wow! And it's a showcase event, and I don't want anybody to think, oh, it was terrible, whatnot. No, he wasn't trying to hit nobody. He just throwing his fastball, and the thing that I thought was impressive. And I look at these things. I understand the stats, and these are for the coaches, and they can kind of see where they're at physically in those types of things. But what was impressive to me was how he bounced back from that. Agreed?
Yeah, so a lot of time, and Kai Bennett, first off, is a really good right-hand pitcher. Obviously, plays for one of the best teams in the state at Liberty, and was a big part of their success this year. Um, Kai is known as a strike thrower. He's got good command. He's a rock solid, steady type pitcher. Well, in these events that I run all the time, often you sometimes see kids get out of their element a little bit because they're trying to do a little bit extra. And so on Kai's very first pitch of the event, he was going to let one rip and try to run one up for the TrackMan velocity and whatnot, which is understandable, and it just got him out of who he is a little bit there. But he settled in after those first couple pitches and ended up having a really strong outing. Um, Kai, you got a chance afterwards. We brought him over there for the interview, and you got to see firsthand. He's a big kid. He or so. There's some projection. There's some obvious upside with Kai. One day he is going to throw pretty hard, and at the event he was up to 88, which was really, that's a strong velocity for anyone, but it was a tick above what he normally is. So, one day when he's in college, he's going to be a 90-mile-per-hour arm. I'm certain of it, and he's already, and he's hunting for a couple more. And but he had a good showing at the Mo Fall games on Sunday.
Talking to him, and that was funny because we talked to him. It was open. I love that. And he says, he said, I usually don't have that right side run on my fastball, and that goes to what you were saying. He says, I usually have more cut action. He said, so I was a little surprised myself. He said, I just had to settle in and find it and make that adjustment. And that was something he understood, as you said, the mental process and what he needed to do to correct it, and he did. And that second inning, he was just lights out. I mean, nobody touched him.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, as you said. What is he? He's 6'4", isn't he? I think he's at.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
And you can tell his frame is not filled out yet.
No, and that's pretty typical, for these high school guys that are tall. Most of the time, they're tall, lean guys. So when I use a boatload of those type, not a boatload of Kai Bennett type talents, but there's plenty of kids that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" in high school that are most likely that kid's going to fill out when he's when he turns more into a man, when he gets into that 20, 21, even 22 range. So you evaluate a kid like that a little different than the kid that is 5'10", already has the muscles, has probably a beard or a goatee. Like, okay, he's probably about who he is now because he's already developed. The taller, leaner kids still trying to grow into their bodies oftentimes take a velocity jump or a jump in development a little later.
There you go. Last kid I had no clue. When I saw his name, I was like, I have no idea how to pronounce this. And, we got a chance to talk with Charlie, and he says, yeah, nobody else does either. And, but Charlie Musarisi, another Liberty kid, he was really good on the mound as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, Musarisi, you actually taught me how to say his name properly, so credit to you. Charlie probably was the number one standout at the event. Has a live fastball, was 85 up to 89, and then has a big-time breaking ball that he had a great feel for. He led the event in strikeouts, has a true swing and miss pitch. So Musarisi definitely had a big-time event and good, he hit the jackpot. He had a strong event on the field. You're watching it with your eyes like, wow, this kid is good. He's striking everyone out. And then you go back and you look at the data, and he had big time spin rate on the breaking ball, over 2,500 up to 2,600 on the breaking ball. The spin on the fastball was good. So like the data backed up what we were seeing. So that was, a great day for Musarisi there.
Just a little hint here, folks. I believe Liberty is going to be good. and it was interesting because both Kai and Charlie both said that, they were talking about guys they also have on their pitching staff. It's not just those two guys. They got some depth, and I was just kind of picking away at that a little bit. So there you go. Again, that District 8 of death over there in the Kansas City area.
I know we talk about the one here. I kind of feel like that Kansas City one's actually the best one in the state some years. So that's a really strong one, with Liberty and Liberty North being our past two champions, in 6A Missouri. So and then you throw in a Staley, in there as well. That's a pretty strong grouping.
And just a last thought on that. That one stays pretty much the same. Over here, they've moved some pieces around. And so It's kind of interesting how they did that. But Zumwalt West, Francis Howell, Timberland, those are really good. Don't make no mistake. But as you said, I think one year or the other, I think right now that District 8 is just pretty brutal.
It is. If you win that, you got a real chance to win state.
Absolutely.
But good luck winning it.
Kevin, we also, as you alluded to, a couple of these guys had good position player outings as well. Who was other than Charlie, because you said you thought he was the top kid there, who else stood out for you as a position player?
We had, had a strong event across the board of the older guys in the Upper-class games. A couple guys that caught our eye. Jack Kessler from behind the plate showed really well in the defensive portion of the event, with some really nice low pop times, strong throwing arm, and ran a 7.2 on kind of a slower track, to be honest. And there's a lot of things I can control when I run the event. Obviously, the one thing I can't control is the weather, and we had a decent amount of rain. The outfield held up great, but it wasn't it wasn't the world's fastest track. So, the fact that he ran a 7.2, that's moving for a catcher, and I'm betting on a different day that might be maybe a 7.0 even. So Jack did good. Peyton Braille, who's a 2023 catcher, he's a physical guy. He impressed me. He had a really good event, I thought, from behind the plate. Lucas Red showed off a big arm from from the outfield, was up to 89 out there. Dylan Atherton had a strong all-around event. He was one of our top hitters at the event, exit velo-wise, threw well from the outfield. Had a really just a good all-around day. Was upper 90s on the exit velo, so that's pretty big-time stuff there for a high school hitter. If you're getting the 90, you can feel good about yourself. But when you're getting in that 97, 98 range, that's something that's going to turn some heads.
That's big time, what you would consider big time pop, right?
Yes, for a high school guy, absolutely. And you can hit a home run in the big leagues at 98 miles per hour out of the park. So, now some of those guys, the elite of the elite, the big leagues, on one they absolutely destroy, you'll see one in the 115, 112, stuff like that. But anything in the upper 90s is extremely impressive.
So for people that, and I think I like to throw these stats out there so people have perspective. Giving people perspective on things is always a good idea when if they're looking at something. How come you can't go to 90? Well, wait a minute. What is an average hard hit velocity in Major League Baseball? Kevin, are you aware of those stats or?
Well, here's the tough thing about that question.
Mm-hmm.
So in BP, which is what these are, the number is going to be greatly different than in game. Like
Gotcha.
you think about going back to the Cardinal game, like Albert Pujols had a base hit last night that was, maybe an exit velocity of 65 miles per hour, possibly. It went over the first baseman's head. So you're going to get hits like that in a game. His home run in Pittsburgh that went to basically center field, that one's going to look a lot different. So, there's in-game exit velocities, but then in the BP, those big leaguers, those type of guys are all going to be upper 90s to 100 mile per hour, into the 100s, and then the elite of the elite, they're going to be 110, 115 in that range. I think the record, I think, is like 119 to 121 in-game exit velo. So,
Wow.
which is ridiculous.
And
But that's also, a 95 mile per hour plus fastball and one of these big, strong guys getting it absolutely perfect to get that, the 121.
And there is, I know that the BB core bats, the -3s now, they're not what they're not the old Beezer bats that used to, or even before that. So they have a little more look to a wood bat, correct?
Yeah, the BB core drop threes are going to perform somewhat similar to a wood bat. It's not quite the same yet. Obviously, they typically don't break unless cap one and the cap pops out. I have seen a couple of them explode, but honestly, usually that was more in the college game when I'd see that. I haven't seen many high school kids break their bat. But yeah, they're going to perform somewhat like a wood bat. It's not like the old day aluminum bats where it was basically a trampoline in your hand.
Remember that old Easton Black Magic?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, baby.
I got a couple base knocks with that baby.
Absolutely. Oh man, I'm old, dude. Oh shoot. And the thing that you're looking at too, and the other thing that is interesting is you get a little bit bigger sweet spot with the BB core bats than you would necessarily a wood bat, correct?
Yeah, that it's a little bigger sweet spot, and then also like if you get jammed a little bit or in on your hands a little, that's still an aluminum bat. Where a wood bat might shatter. You might be strong enough now to push one over the infielder's head, so that would be a difference.
There you go. I always like to talk about things like that because I always like to bring a perspective to people, and I love that when you do that because I'll say something, you go, well, just hang on a second. I get that because
I'll tell you what. The other thing is they're lighter. So you ever pick up one of the big leaguers' bat? I mean, those things are logs. You got to be a man to swing one of those things. So that's the other difference is those high school kids are usually swinging a 33-inch. 30-ounce. Some swing a 32, 29, and a couple of your bigger, strong kids will swing a 34-inch, 31-ounce.
right.
In the big leagues, they're swinging more evenly weighted things, and they're a little heavier.
If it's a 34,
Even a couple ounces feels heavy in your hand. When you get to that level.
absolutely. I agree. Another big event It was some good stuff. We'll come back next week. We're going to talk a little bit more about the 2023 class. The rankings just come out. Kevin, we got the Battle for the Arch coming up September 27th, correct?
Tuesday, September 27th. Yes, sir.
Getting some good folks looking at some good stuff there.
Yeah, we roster's filling up. We're putting our finishing touches on it. Fall ball's a little bit interesting time, which some pitchers, but we're getting a really nice response and a good team put together for that event where we'll go in and take on Illinois.
Very good, very good, folks. Kevin Moulder. Kevin, as always, thanks for dropping the knowledge, man.
Absolutely fun.
All right, guys, we're continuing the show today, and we've got Coach Tim Funkhouser from Edwardsville High School in Edwardsville, Illinois. Coach Funkhouser, thanks for taking the time, coming on the show and talking to us, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to talking some baseball.
Absolutely. That's one of our goals. We really are looking to expand and look on to there's a lot of good baseball in Illinois, and there's just a lot of good baseball in the Midwest in general. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I know that different scouts, and you talk about the amount of players that we've had, in the state of Illinois, but also in Missouri, particularly. We're near the St. Louis area, so we're well aware of the guys that have advanced the big leagues or been drafted or played at a high collegiate level. But there's a plethora of guys, and it continues to churn out annually.
Yeah, absolutely. Want to say congratulations to you for your second state championship in 3 years. And I don't know what class you guys are in over there.
We have 4 classes now in Illinois, and that's been true since, I believe, 2008 was the first year for that. So we're the largest class of 4A, and that usually means that we have our schools largely within the Southwestern Conference. 6 out of the 7 are 4A, and then you start venturing up to the north, and pretty much most of the schools up in Chicago comprise 4A. So we get up into the Joliet area, which they would call downstate, where the state is located. They call it downstate, and where the joke is when we've made it to state, and we drove 4 hours to go down, 4 hours north to go downstate. So no, we can run into some of the teams from the Joliet area as early as the third or fourth game. Oh, wow. Into our postseason, 4th game.
So your playoff structure is a little bit different than Missouri's, correct?
Correct.
So
yeah, I think Missouri, you have districts, and then what's the next round after that?
They went because they added the next class. They went to class 6 last year. Yeah, it was first year, I think, last year. And so class 5 and 6 have district playoffs, and then they go directly to the quarterfinals. And then the Final Four. So you've taken that sectional game out, so it lessens the amount of games in the actual state playoffs.
Right. Yeah. I think I followed some of that, and that makes sense whenever I think back to it. And in Illinois, I'm sure we have more schools than Missouri, and we used to have 2 classes. So you would have over around 200 schools or so into that one state tournament. And now we have, I believe it was like 146 last year, somewhere around there. I counted up a couple different times, but the joke is whenever I tell our kids at camp and after 2019 and then this past year is how many people have been in a tournament, and about all the kids raise their hand like, I've been in a tournament. I say, well, how many teams were in your tournament? And they're like, well, we had 4, we had 8, we had 12, we played in a team with 16. And I was like, well, we just we played in a tournament that lasted 3 weeks, and if you lost, you were done. There was no such thing as pool play or saving your pitchers till bracket play began. And over that 3-week span, you got to win 7 games, possibly 8. And if you lose, you're done. And so they put it in perspective as much as you can to be like, oh, that's a pretty tough thing to do. So
it is a tough thing.
But we always enjoy the postseason. I think that's what brings value to it, is that you're always living on the edge each game. And I know Missouri's single elimination, and there's several states that are double, and a lot of those states are farther south that they can start their postseason earlier, and they start their season earlier too. So I'm sure there's a lot of variables to that.
You received some pretty big honors this year. You were Region 4 Coach of the Year, the NHS BCR Region 4 Coach of the Year for American Baseball Coach Association and ATEC. Tell me, you've been in baseball a long time. Your careers, you've been there. What do these things mean to you? What do these accolades mean to you as you're getting more longer into your career at this point?
Accolades are great, acknowledgement, and you really appreciate the Coaches Association to be able to recognize coaches. But I also know well enough if your team advances, you have a really good chance of doing it. Or if you've been in it a long time and you have a different chance. And I serve on different committees, and I'm on that ABCA Divisional High School Committee, and I'm also on our Illinois High School Coaches Board of Directors, and serving in those capacities too. So I'm sure that people get my name out there maybe a little quicker than different people. So I acknowledge to me, it's a little bit of those things that may help within that, but it's also a recognition of like our coaching staff does a great job, but really it starts with our players. Like if our players don't compete at a high level and bring it every day, then those type of things, a Coach of the Year for an era, whatever it is, those aren't going to come as much. But I think at any time it's nice to be recognized, but you could take a major league team and even all the things that they do during the course of the year, they know it's going to be based on somebody came through in the clutch, and they did that more often because they played 162 games type of thing.
It is about talent, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think anybody like the Pirates, I think, are doing a lot better than they have been doing, but they've been struggling for a long time. And Clint Hurdle had been coaching them, and I think Derek Shelton's coaching them now, and I'm sure there's not much of a difference between some of the other guys coaching some of the higher level teams. But no, I mean, it's for me, I always like to look at it as how can we expand the things that we do or be most productive at those things. And our administration gives us a lot of flexibility as far as to be able to manage our programs the way that we want. We take that responsibility seriously. So with freedom, a common term that I use is with freedom comes responsibility. So we have the freedom to do some of those things if we want to schedule a trip, or we have a booster club, and if we can manage our booster club and do those different types of things, the kids end up benefiting more, and they get, say, more of the perks, whether it's food on the road or a charter bus, and they get a little bit more of a so-called college experience. Those things end up putting our kids in situations where we play our teams on a basis that might not be just in our immediate region, and they get to see that they can compete against all the teams that are up in Chicago as well. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I know it's not an acknowledgement of that I'm a smarter brains guy than the coach I'm coaching against across the field.
So I want to ask you this. How difficult is it? And as you're talking about your coaches and the accolades, it shows that your program and what you're doing in that respect, along with the talent, how difficult is it to sustain that kind of success year after year?
Yeah, I've kind of always looked at it. I was very fortunate to be in Edwardsville program as a player. So whenever I got my first head coaching job at Triad High School, I had just a semester of being a grad assistant at Western Illinois where I played, and I returned as a grad assistant. So I knew a little more behind the scenes of how to structure practices and some basics within it. But obviously I needed to continue to expand on that over time. And I brought some of the things from my experiences at Edwardsville, my experiences with summer ball, and also in college to be able to formulate our program at Triad. But we continued to build on what they had. And at Edwardsville, when I took over, they were 40-0 the year before. So the joke was that if I lost the game, I was going to be fired. And I think I was 25 at the time. So I'm sure I could have gone a different direction after that. But I think I was mature enough to realize that I knew I didn't have all the answers, that I was going to work at it. I had been around enough people to also recognize that I had a foundation. And then I was also able to have a great support staff. And Mike Waldo was a coach that had been coaching prior to me, and he had even coached with my dad in 1980. So whenever I took over the program in 98, 99, the 99 spring season, I could lean on his advice as well as the other coaches on our staff to help formulate and kind of build on the program. And then I think some of the things that he taught, as well as Coach Pyle and really my dad as a coach too, is just kind of bringing it every day and trying to maximize the abilities of the players, the coaches, and how can our booster club, how can we teach the kids to act in a sportsman-like manner? How do we teach them to act on the road? And those type of things, I think, can help build sustained success. But like we talked about earlier, like there's a lot of kids that like playing baseball in our communities, and they value that time that they're out there. So whenever they come through our middle schools, that gives them a little better foundation. And our coaches do a great job of instituting the skills without being so concerned about winning. And then the same thing happens at our lower levels. And then when we get to the varsity too, we truthfully don't talk about winning a lot. We talk about playing like a high caliber of baseball and playing the game well, but we really don't talk about like, okay, we're going to try to win 15 games in a row. Like I think last year we were the previous year we had a win streak. I don't even know what it was, 24 or whatever. And I thought about different times about addressing that from the standpoint that the players wouldn't put more pressure on them. But I think they were so bought into they needed to get better on a daily basis that they never put their mind in a mindset like, we're so good, we're going to just show up and win out. And last year's team was the same token. Like I think they valued practice and every rep within practice as good as or better than any team that we've had. And that really is just a credit to them to recognize, one, they had a mission in mind to win state, but the overriding attribute for our team success was that it wasn't just about winning.
I love that thought process because I talk about these things a lot. I've talked about it on our show, especially with youth baseball. I always talk about a winning attitude, and understanding if you're talking about winning. People ask, what's winning? And I said, well, winning is just how do you prepare for a game? How do you go out and practice? How do you do these things? How do you do this? How do you do these every day? So that when you go out on the field, you play at a high level and you have an opportunity to play well, which gives you an opportunity for the result you're looking for. You're never guaranteed to win. Nobody guarantees you to win.
Exactly.
It's just not the reality of sport. But the only thing you can do is control the things that how you work every day to put yourself in a position to play well, and the opportunities are there. And if somebody makes one more play than you, tip of the cap.
Right.
Let's keep working. And I love that, Coach. That to me, that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
No, I think looking internally about like I value us being able to go through that process, and I think it's a higher level. And I know Lori Blade just retired from coaching basketball and just softball this past year. We talked about it all the time, and our tennis coach. I mean, we have so many highly successful coaches in our program that we all can bounce ideas off of and use in all the different sport realms. But one of the things I think humbles us all is that we recognize that it's a daily process, but we don't talk about winning as much as those other programs have won. We don't talk about winning as much as just how you carry yourself and the attributes that can lead to success. And just like you mentioned, that I think sometimes in the public, or if you listen to, say, talk radio, like if the Cardinals are winning, the manager is probably a genius, and if they're losing, they're probably not good. I had a chance at our Coaches Association up in Illinois or in Chicago last year of Paul Maneri, the old LSU coach, and I had dinner with him with a few other guys on our board, and he always said that there was two constants in LSU baseball. As one was the expectation was to win the national championship, and two, they wanted the coach fired. So even if they won the national championship, either way, they wanted the coach fired. So it was like, well, we didn't win. We didn't go undefeated and win the national championship, and we gave up 3 runs. That was the coach's fault, so they'll fire him. But you're around a guy like him, and he was so inspirational because he had just decided that he wanted to retire, where I think in his heart, he wished he didn't feel that way. But as the times are changing with the NLI, with the portal and everything with COVID and where he was at in his life, he really felt like it was for the betterment of their program and for baseball and for him as an individual and a family member to step away from it. And he was just so inspirational the way he talked. And you could tell that he was a guy that loved to compete and also have people that had a growth mindset. And I think that's very powerful.
With that in mind, I think that's a great segue into this next question. Is coaching today's athletes, is it different than it was, you think, 15, 20 years ago?
I'd say, yeah. I think there's some constants for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I know one of the topics you have on here is about club baseball or how baseball's kind of changed from that realm. I think there has been a lot of changes in privatized training and club teams and those organizations, or organizing players for those different events or summer or fall, etc. And I think being able to adapt to that is huge. And similar to the players and the coaches that have adapted to all the changes in Major League Baseball. I think you had a hitting coach in the past just said, hey, this is how I did it. This is how you should do it. And whether they knew all those aspects of it, they had a high level of success, but did they know the things that could go into it or actually quantify how that individual can get better? And not to say that they didn't have knowledge, because I'm sure we could all learn from them. Myself, I've picked their brain a million times, but they've kind of evolved to the standpoint that data is driving a lot of decision making, as well as their ability to articulate and learn movement patterns and a lot of different things. So I think even just socially, like I've tried, I think there's some old school attributes of my coaching, and I've tried to have some different new schools communication wise. I know our practices are more upbeat and up tempo. There's times where I'll play music within practice. I don't play music much, but when we go to batting practice and I want the guys just to hit on the field, we don't want it to be a like a hype scenario where they're jumping up and down. Like that's not for me. Somebody else might like it, but it's from the standpoint that they have their task and they have some background music to help with the atmosphere and eliminate the dead. If we're going over, say, a team defense or some other fundamentals, then the music's not part of it. But that would be just one thing. And then learning how to communicate to the players more, or kind of sift through and build relationships rather than this is how you should do it. Try to build a relationship first to have that trust within them. And then there's some things that this is how we have to do it. But also I've always been a person that likes to explain the why of why, so they have more buy-in. And if we can get the players that buy-in, so like we were talking about Tony Perkins, I'm sure a lot of his players have buy-in because they've had team success. We have had a lot of team success too. So you have some automatic buy-in, but nowadays kids want to know the why. And if you can't provide the why, then that's going to be lingering out there. And I've also learned that I don't have to be the swing coach, if you want to say that, and their position coach, etc. That doesn't mean that I couldn't do some of those things, but I don't need to have a clashing on different things. If there's something that comes up in that realm where we see the person's continuing to get outs a certain way, then we can talk about, hey, this is what we see within it, and this is how your barrel is coming through the zone. Like that needs to be changed, or you're going to get the same results.
Right.
But for us to try to manufacture everybody's swing in the 2.5 weeks we have leading up to our season, and then we play 35 games in Illinois, that's not feasible. And truthfully, a lot of that stuff I used to try to do, and found that I had to pick my moments within that. And also the most important thing was to have the players to have buy-in. And I think we tend to do that in a lot of different realms a lot better than whenever I started, whether it's defense, fielding, etc.
So, and that goes to kids are somewhat more prepared in that respect. It does make some of those things a bit easier because they're coming from that club baseball scene. They've been working with a swing coach. Good, bad, or indifferent, they've been working with somebody, right? A position coach, a fielding coach. They've gone through some processes depending upon the level of club play, and that's to be sure. So that is going to give you a little bit better opportunity in some of those things that you can deal with things more at a managerial level. Am I right?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted, but you hit a lot of great topics. And to kind of lay everything on the table for everybody, I've been coaching high school baseball for 28 years. I believe this is my 4th year of being involved with Gators Baseball Academy, which is a club here in St. Louis area, and also in Illinois as well. And prior, I would have different opinions or different impressions for different things. And now that I've been involved and seen other teams compete, I think there's a lot of benefits from all aspects. There's a ton in high school baseball. There's a ton in club baseball. There's some limitations for high school baseball that I wish could be a little different. The financial side, especially on the club end or private training, I wish could be different. And I do instruction and stuff like that. And when you walk up to a tournament and you have to pay $10 to see your kid play in the same town, and you go to maybe a Cardinal game on one night and maybe $8, that's different. But I also understand that's just how it's set up now. And it doesn't mean that it's right, but that's how it's set up now. And the same thing with the amount of travel. And I have a better perspective on all that. So whenever somebody says maybe something about club baseball, or somebody says, well, that's high school baseball, that's not like, from our standpoint, I can't speak on other standpoints because I don't see all the other teams and what they do every day and what they compete, etc. But I know from our standpoint, like we went to Kansas City and played Liberty and Liberty North last year, and they probably had 12 to 13 Division I signees. And our guys went out there and competed. Yeah. And we have one kid that is now at SIUE. We have a few junior college kids, Division III kid, etc. And we had some kids that aren't going to college, but they were really great competitors, and they could have found a place to play in college. They just elected not to. But our guys really competed. And we have other kids that were younger that have either committed or they will over time. But the value, whenever somebody says, well, that's just high school baseball, like we faced guys that are going to be drafted in as high as the first 2 or 3 rounds and those type of things, which in the club setting, I see as well. And there's sometimes that there's more of those kids on a particular team. And then there's some other times where we don't face as many, but there's value in all of it. And that's the part that, like, there's value in a person getting instruction and learning how their arm moves and how to take care of it, etc. And that doesn't mean that they're going to get everybody out or they're all going to get drafted. And that's not to say that everybody should be getting a lesson every single day. But I think there's a lot of exciting things going on within the high school setting and outside the high school setting. And it would be wrong to devalue any of those.
Coach, I want to do this if you would. You know, we talk a lot about subjects, and we've got a whole big program. I would love to bring you back on the show and discuss some of those nuances between high school and club, because that's a big subject. It really is.
Yeah.
And those are the things that, in my estimation, as you said, I have no problem with clubs. I have no problem with American Legion baseball. I have no problem with anything. What's the best case scenario for the player, and how are they getting right? How are they getting developed?
You've hit it right on the nail. That during, like, right now, I started out coaching a fall team that only had 3 Edwardsville kids, and there was some more Edwardsville kids that were added. So when it got to 5, I couldn't coach that team anymore. That was a limitation from the high school standpoint that wouldn't allow me to do that. But I know that they're going to be in a good position, and it's best for that kid to be able to do that. We can provide some instruction in the wintertime, but it has to be on a limited number basis. You can only work with 2 kids at a time in Illinois. And we're not going to tackle every kid. And that's not to say that every kid would want to do our instruction. And I work with different kids from different schools. And to me, it's like, what's best for that kid? And I sometimes joke about it. I usually don't like talking about like Edwardsville versus another school, but I sometimes joke. And Tony's got one of Tony's players from Francis Howell. And I say, hey, I hope you do better with this every other time except when you play Edwardsville. And you know what? If he hits a home run against us, opposite field or whatever against us, I'll tip my cap. And I've kind of got to that point that as much as I love to compete, it's about just trying to go out there and tip your cap type of setting. So, yeah, there's so many. I think it's really interesting because there's so many aspects. And I think when you're in environments that everybody's wanting to challenge, and I have to sometimes explain it, like from my standpoint of being involved with the club. I hope my players recognize that it doesn't matter for me what club. We have sometimes a player comes into GBA or leaves GBA, and I'm not recruiting our kids to our program in the wintertime or whatever. They can choose whatever they want to do, and I think that's the best for them. And then it gives us the freedom to coach those kids in the time that we have them in the spring. And to me, that's really exciting to see how far they can go. And then I would relate it to similar a college. Like a college doesn't coach them during the summer, and they're limited. If an assistant coach goes and coaches the team, I don't know if it's 4, it could be 3. I can't remember or what the actual rule is. But if they go coach in, say, the Cape Cod League, they can't take their whole team from LSU up there. Their coach can only have a certain amount, but those other players have great experiences, and then they're able to come back into their fold during that time. So it's all about value and the time that you have with them, and for them to try to have growth during or outside that time too.
Coach Tim Funkhouser, folks, this is some good information. Coach, again, I want to get you back on the show. I hope you come back and chat us up some more. This was kind of our first time we've done this. I know you were out at the ballpark with us, and we're hoping to get out towards your way a lot more as we do this, and I appreciate you taking the time coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks. And as we spoke in the past, you always do a great job of your coverage. And I love the educational piece, because as deep as I'm into it now, whenever I was younger and my kids were just getting started, I didn't have all those experiences. And now I have coaches from different sports asking me those questions about their 8-year-old, like, what does he need to be doing? And I wanted to sign him up for Little League, but I can't find enough play, et cetera. So trying to find out what's the most relevant situation for them, and then let them take their pathways at this time. So thanks for your ability to communicate that and help educate people to make their best decisions, because being in education, that's what you're trying to always do, is put people in the best situation to have success, and also the freedom of choice. So thanks for doing what you do.
We appreciate that very much. We really do, especially coming from you. Lots of success, continued to success to you, Coach. And again, like I said, we'll get you back on, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. Please, if you like what we're doing here, hit the subscribe button. Hit that dinger right there, because that's what we do around here. We hit dingers, and as Mitch says, doubles as well. So doubles and dingers are good, right, Coach?
Those are great. Yeah, before slug was really a thing. That was if you can hit doubles or home runs, we got a chance to score more runs, and the runs are the most important stat, but that's the forefront to that, or the beginnings of it.
Exactly. So that'll get you all your notifications, folks. Everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes, and hitters, hit them where they ain't. We'll see you next time.
Love it. Thank you.